What is up, guys? Welcome to my new podcast, Spinny Does IT. It's a simple podcast. It's like a 10-minute podcast once a week. It's just me to talk about tech, what it means, what it does, what the news is out there, what you got to be worried about. Honestly, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be boring. But if you like IT, then stick around. Go ahead and follow me on TikTok, just Spinny Does IT. I'll post shorts there about information. There's really nothing cool about what I'm doing. It's really just simple. I don't know. I get bored. And honestly, I'm just trying to talk. I just like to hear myself talk. So this is the one-man show of Spinny Does IT. We'll see how good it does, but I'm using my crummy mic this week. I've left my good one at the other studio where we do Disciples of the Force podcast. If you like Star Wars, check that out. So let's talk about iOS 14.5, a little bit back there, app tracking transparency. So what this was, it's that stupid thing every time you click on an application, it says ask app to not track or allow. Those are your two options, right? Well, right there, I mean, many people say that verbiage in and of itself is very interesting because Apple has always done don't allow. That's been every single thing, right? So a lot of people started poking into it, like, what is this ask app not to track? Because the verbiage ask, that's super interesting, right? Like, hey, please don't track me. And it's like, yeah, we got what you asked us. Doesn't mean we're going to do it, which is essentially exactly what it is. So if you look at 9 to 5 Mac goes into a lot of it and what it really meant. One of the biggest things that Apple basically did is they took away this IDFA, which is Identifier for Advertisers. It was just a random device identifier assigned by Apple to each iOS device, kind of like, an address, if you would. Just super simple, where you live, what's your address. So anytime you search something, that query or that result or what you're looking up would go into your address box, basically. So it was just building a profile for everything you were looking up on the internet into this address, right? So they can identify you to that number. Maybe they don't have your name, which they did, but maybe they didn't have your name and they were just pointing to that so they would know. And so basically they would start targeting to this specific number of these ads because you looked up, you looked up diapers, and now you get 40 diaper ads every day you go because you looked it up one time and it was saved under the IDFA. Well, what Apple did was pretty smart, pretty strategic, if you would. They introduced this, so basically they botched that. So you can't look at this anymore, right? So people thought, oh, right, they're done. They're not tracking us anymore. I mean, they do this whole campaign, the whole marketing. There's commercials about how, oh, we're not looking at you, like everyone else is. It's not true. 9 to 5 Mac does go into a little bit more explanation of why, though. They can't promise that these applications aren't sending these to other third parties who are gathering the information. And basically, if they found it, they would have you report it, and they would be removed from the App Store. That is what Apple said from the beginning. We're going to remove it. It's not going to be there. It's not going to be an issue. Well, the Washington Post teamed up with, let me find the name here, a privacy software maker called Lockdown. So basically what they found is that even if you said ask app to not track, it was still sending very interesting data to a third-party app called Chartboost. It was sending your internet address. I mean, it was going down to your volume level, how much free storage you had on your device, your battery level, really interesting stuff. And so as the Washington Post put it, they said, in other words, it's sidestepping your request to be left alone. You can't stop it, and your privacy is worse off for it. So what did that mean? So basically, this tracking is no longer a thing. It's now called fingerprinting, right? So basically, hey, we're not grabbing your IDFA, we're not getting that, but it's still receiving information and it's still sending it to third-party applications. So what the Washington Post did is they would go in and they said, hey, Apple, you're doing this, we don't like that, we want to report these applications. And they said weeks go by and those apps are still running with nothing changing. They still ran the same test and saw it was still sending to these random applications out there. So the biggest takeaway is basically, this ask app not to track is so genius, right? The verbiage is good. Apple can look like the good people, like the hero saying, hey, we're against this. And if people ask for it, we're going to stop it, right? But really, like I said, it's just sending the request to them. It's just saying, hey, can you please not track us? And it's like, sure, we understand what you said. We're going to keep doing it, right? I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't really care. If it gives me a good deal on some good jeans, I'm all about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's your call. Anyway, that's kind of the research I was diving into. A lot of people kind of laugh at the Ask app not to track whole thing. There's more information on it. It's really interesting. Go give it a look if you really want to dive into it. All right, and to close this episode, I think I'm going to probably talk about bug bounty for a while because it's something that I'm interested in and I do all the time, and I've not yet gotten anything from, but it's interesting to me nonetheless. So I went to college, and my degree is in cybersecurity, and in cybersecurity they teach you. One of the biggest things they talk about is cross-site scripting. XSS is what it's known as well, if you see it written out. And what it is basically you're able to manipulate the HTML code on a page. So basically everything, the backbone of the whole internet, every web page you visit is HTML. Granted, people use JavaScript to, make the pages actually look pretty, because if you just did a HTML page, it wouldn't look that pretty. It looked like it's something from the 90s, which is funny that you still have to learn it, because you have to learn, as cybersecurity, you have to learn how that works, because that's the backbone of what everything's being presented. Anyway, point is, with bug bounties, which is just a way for you, a website hosts itself, and it says, hey, we want to host our website, come do some web pen testing on us. And if you find any of these vulnerabilities using, the scopes that we set, so only these web pages and you can't do this, that, or whatever, we'll pay you. It's pretty common. And one of the biggest ones people talk about, and they always will, bring up, is cross-site scripting, as I mentioned. So what is it? What is cross-site scripting? So basically, HTML, as I've mentioned, let's say you search in a search box on a web page, hello world, the trope of IT. You go ahead and type that in, right? And let's say it says, here is a search result for hello world. And when you do that, you'll see that if you inspect the page, you'll see that this is written typically an H1 tag, right? So nothing crazy, just a header, just how it's being shown. So what people found back in the day and still today, that you can somehow get out of what is being written. So whatever you type is being shown, right? I wrote that, it's being shown. Well, they figured out that they can close that H1 tag and implement their own code. So what the most common, test of a cross-site scripting is always going to be, so you close the H1 tag and you just write script. So you do bracket, script, close bracket, alert, open parenthesis 1, close parenthesis 1, and then close that script tag. And guess what? You hit search, boom, it pops up with alert. With whatever you typed in, you could put XSS, you could put your mom sucks, I don't know, do whatever you want, and it'll show. Well, that's big because it allows you manipulated code on the page. You've now been able to put whatever you want on there. Now there's reflective, there's DOM, there's a whole bunch of types of cross-site scripting. But the bare minimum is you're basically taking whatever's on that page, the HTML code, you're able to implement your own. Some people are able to do redirects to a different web page. People are able to, basically it's a free world if you're able to find one of these. Yet, they're the lowest paid bounties on bug bounty programs. You'll make $200, $300, which isn't saying nothing, but the amount of work it takes to find them, because trust me, you're not going to be finding this simple close the H1 tag and type in script like you learned in college. No, that's not how it works. I wish it was. I've been doing bug bounties for a long time, and it is so difficult to find that. I mean, there's hundreds of ways for you to manipulate the code because it gets encoded. But at the end of the day, the simple way of putting what cross-site scripting is you're able to jump out of the constraints that you're put in with HTML. You're able to manipulate that thing to put whatever you want on the web page, which is dangerous. Apparently, I just stopped talking. I didn't finish. I thought I finished the podcast. I didn't. So that's it. That's all I have. Come back next week. It might be better. Probably won't. I don't know. I'm just having a good time. Take care.